Welcome back, everyone. Chodesh Tov. Welcome to the month of Adar, the month of Pisces. We have a beautiful 48-hour period of the new moon where we can awaken the light of miracles. It's more than just a new moon. It is the final new moon of the year. The month of Pisces is the last month of the astrological year. So this is our chance to clean up everything in this year to bring us to the month of Aries, where that's considered one of the new moons of the year, the month of Aries. We have a chance to cleanse everything we can. It's almost like Virgo and Rosh Hashanah right now, almost like Elul and Tishrei. So it's an incredibly powerful month with the holiday of Purim, with the energy of, as we said, miracles, with the light of joy, of happiness. So we want to awaken all this light and for ourselves and for the world, especially with the power of the Zohar. So as we begin our study, let's set our intention to connect to the great light of Rosh Chodesh, the great light of cleansing, of transformation. We say in the Musaf, in the prayers of Rosh Chodesh, that this new moon will be the end of all pain and negativity and destruction and darkness. That this beginning will be the end of end. So with the light of the Zohar, let's help bring that into the world. We set our intention to use the light of the Zohar to transform all aspects of uh, lack, of uncertainty, of negativity that exists within us. We've been studying about the power of the opponent to give us the strength to overcome our selfishness within, to hear that gentle whisper of our beautiful soul that's within us, to be guided by that force, to really be who we're meant to be, to reveal the true light within us. And with deep appreciation for our teachers that have come before us, for the merit to be on this path, we want to meditate that we are drawing all the support of all the tzaddikim, all the light of our soul to guide us in our connection. So let's begin with the prayer of the Ari to open up our hearts, and because it's the new moon, as we do every month, I'll post in the chat if anyone would like to support the work that we do. Consider donating to the Zohar project to support the daily Zohar study. It supports all the back end work that goes into this, uh, hours and hours of preparation and everything on our team, the editing of the videos. This allows us to continue doing what we do. For those who have one house membership, this whole study is no charge, but it is pretty much donation based. So we ask for everyone to support in the way that they can to help our study continue and to help reveal more of the light of the Zohar in the world. So I will post in the chat hopefully later today. But in the meantime, let's begin opening our hearts, connecting to the light of the Zohar, the tree of life reality, the light of certainty. ריבון העולמים ואדוני העולמים אב רחמים וסליחות. מודים אנחנו לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהינו שבחידה ובהשתחוויה שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש ונתת לנו חלק בזדות תורתך הקדושה למען חיינו שעשיתי עמנו חסד גדול כזה. על כן אנחנו מפליאים תחת בנינו לבניך שבכל ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו ועד יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לבניך וכן יעזור אנחנו לאהבתנו שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולאהבתך ותקשיב אוזניך לדברים אלה ותפתח לבבינו הערב בסודות תורתך וילמדנו זה נחת רוח לפני כיסך ותחכך ניחוח ותציל עלינו עומק כל נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו ושית נצוצות ונצוצות אליך הקדושים אשר על ידם גידית את דבריך לעולם וזכותם וזכות אבותם וזכות תורתם ותמונתם וקשתם יעמוד עלינו למען ירשע בדבר מעלה ובזכותם תאר עינינו ומה שאנו לומדים כמאמר נעים זה מארות ישראל גל עיני והביטו נפלא בתורתך כי אדוני ייתן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה יהיו לרצונים מפיו יהגונים ולפניך אדוני צור וגואלי. So we're discussing this verse in Ecclesiastes. King Solomon said, "Tov yeled misken lechacham imelch zaken uchsil asher lo yada lizaher od." We're on paragraph 7, and until now we've explained that Tov Yeled, this young, better to be a poor but wise youth, represents the positive inclination, the voice of our soul, and we said it refers to the angel Metat, the angel that governs all the other angels. And we explained yesterday how this angel receives its light uh, based on the different conditions of the Nukva, the Malchut. Either it receives the light of wisdom, which is then old, or the light of mercy, which then the light is revealed. That's the youth. That's where we want to be, always in a state of humility. That's also one of the gifts of the month of Pisces, is is the gift of humility with the energy of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses. But then the Zohar continues now to explain about Mimelech Zaken. It's better to be a young, poor, wise, which means connected to the soul's voice, than the Melech Zaken. What is the Melech Zaken? What is this old, foolish king? Paragraph 7. Melech Zaken, Dahu Yetzirah. We're speaking, when it says the foolish king, the old foolish king, that's talking about the evil inclination, which is the opposite, the contrast to Mitat, to the angel. Kamad Itmar, as we've said, Dehamin Yoma, Dehava, Lanafak Misa'avute La'almin. Since the opponent was created, it never left its negative ways. It always stuck to, which again, that's what he was hired for. But the opponent is always in a state of impurity, always in a state of negativity. Again, and the Zohar will make it more clear as we continue to study, but a lot of us are so quick to believe our opponent. So a lot of us are so quick to believe that selfishness pays. But as the Zohar says, it has never left the domain of impurity. No matter what good you think comes from selfishness, no matter what good you think comes from reactivity, it is still always in the state of impurity. It is the illusion that our opponent has over us that makes us think that it ever pays to use that force in this world, to follow in that way. Vayuchsil, and we say he is an old king, but a foolish king. Why is he foolish? Because everything, all the paths of the opponent, of the evil inclination, of the ego, they always lead to a path of negativity, to harm, to evil. And this force comes and uh, um, misleads people, misleads humanity, you and I. We don't know how to watch out. We don't know how to be careful of this force. It misleads us all the time and deludes us, deludes us that it'll ever pay, that it'll ever work. Reminding ourselves what we said yesterday. We're not just here talking about things in theory. As we study, as we read from the words of the Zohar, speaking about the illusion of the opponent, it helps us see through that illusion. V'iu ate im banash betis kofim. And the opponent, the negative side, the ego, constantly comes and lies to us, misleads us, comes with all these schemes to separate us from our soul, from the Creator. Begin le as ta'a lon me'or tava, in order to mislead us from the path of good, le'or bisha, and put us on the path of negativity, of wickedness. Now, not only does the opponent take us off the path of good, which means the path to do good, but when you take us off the path to do good, it means we're taken off the path of blessings. When we're taken onto the path of what the Zohar calls bad or evil or wickedness or negativity, it means I'm just choosing the path of darkness, of pain. As we've spoken many times, there is this singular path. Rav Ashlag explains the singular path of our soul, of connection to the light. On that path, there are blessings. When I step off that path, when I leave that center, when I leave that perfect path, then that's when I experience the chaos, like bumps on the side of the road that make sure you stay on track. Every time I go off, that's when life gets bumpy. That's when life gets difficult. So the opponent constantly pushes us to one side or the other, to be too merciful or to be too judgmental. But the true path is a very narrow, fine, perfect path of blessings. Paragraph 8. Tachazeh, come and see. And therefore, that's why the opponent, the evil inclination, the ego, the force of selfishness, is the force that first joins a person as they come into this world. As we said, when a person is born, they do not receive the voice of their higher soul yet. They receive the voice of their ego, their lower self. Begin dehemin lay. It's all by design. We're supposed to first hear the voice of our opponent because it's supposed to be without it. That's the rules of the game. We came to this world to remove bread of shame. We came to this world to overcome darkness. We came to this world to become co-creators, as we learn in Kabbalah 1. In order for the game to actually work, there needs to be an opponent. There needs to be an adversary. There needs to be a force to overcome. And obviously, the opponent, anyone who's been around long enough, anyone who's taken time to forget any spiritual study, just look at what the ego does. Again, the example I always think about. When you're in a fight with your partner, with your husband, with your wife, whatever, does your ego make the fight? Does the ego help resolve the fight or just make it much worse? The ego always makes things worse. There's no question about that. There's no question about that. But our ego confuses us and makes us think that, no, I need to prove myself. I need to protect myself. I need to show them. But why? Why does the ego come first? Because we have to believe that that's true. Of course it's not true, but there has to be we have to believe in that voice for the whole game to work. So the Zohar says, before, when we come into this world, our ego comes in with us. Like we said, as we enter this world, so comes the negative voice within us. Why? So that is the voice that we believe. That voice that makes me feel small and not see the limitless light that I have within me. That voice that thinks that I need to manipulate. And that voice that thinks that I need to be reactive. I have to believe in that voice. Because when, at the age of 12 or 13, the soul comes in, the positive voice comes in, the good inclination comes in. A person just can't believe it. It's not natural to believe the voice of our soul. The voice of the soul means the voice of work. The ego means the easy way out. The voice of the soul means the voice of truth. Truth means hard work. Truth means you want blessings, you got to work for them. Truth means transformation. And that truth feels burdensome to us. That truth, that effort that's necessary is something that we're not used to. We're so used to the quick fix, the instant gratification of our ego, that when finally the voice of the soul comes in, which means delayed gratification, restriction, it's so difficult to hear. And that's by design, because it has to be, for there to be free will, there has to be some sort of both options that need to be believable. Or at least the bad option needs to be believable. Therefore, we've learned. Man, or similarly, we've learned. Man hu rasha'aru, who is what the Zohar calls a here, what does it say here? A subtle evil monger. It's like a conniving wicked person. Who is this conniving? Is conniving and cunning the same word? I think it's different. Who is this conniving wicked person? Dahu man de'aktim la'at'ana miloy lekamei daina. It's like, imagine you have do we have this? Right, so imagine a prosecutor comes before the defendant is there and just starts saying pleading his case, all the judgments against the defendant, right? All the judgments to the judge before the defendant is there. Until the other defendant, the other litigant comes, his colleague comes. He already painted a picture for him, and that's why King Solomon says in Proverbs, "Tzadik harishon berivo uvareu v'chakaro." So it says the Tzadik harishon berivo. So the first to speak in court seems to be right. Right? When you hear one side of the picture, that seems like the truth. So the opponent comes first and brings judgment. And that's the voice that we hear, and that's the voice that we believe first. Paragraph 9. Similarly, Hai Rasharu, this evil, the opponent, the evil inclination, the ego it uses the phrase we said a conniving, wicked person. It's similar to the word arum, which means literally means naked, but it means cunning, crafty, or conniving. That's why it says about the serpent in the Garden of Eden in the beginning of Genesis. The description given for the snake was clever, cunning, right? Crafty, because the snake represents the opponent. Right? And even in the Garden of Eden, what was the first conversation that Adam and Eve had? Who was the first person that communicated with Eve? It seems like it was immediately the serpent came and spoke with her. Because that's what the opponent does, comes first. The opponent is in our mind, within us first. Until his friend, which is the soul, which is the voice of the positive inclination, the voice of our truth, the voice of the light, comes in only after. And since, as we said before, since this is the first voice of our ego that we hear first, and the voice of our ego pleaded his case first, which means that's the first voice that we believe. When finally his friend, his colleague, the soul comes in, the good inclination comes in, it's um, it's difficult. It's hard to hear that voice because it's the voice of restriction. And it feels like when we hear what our soul tells us to do, it feels like we can't even lift our head. Kilu atein al kitfei kol matolin de alma. It's as if we're carrying all the weight of the world on our head. This burden of the work of our soul feels so heavy when I've been believing in the path of my ego until now. When I am, because my vessels become so small. Right? When my vessel becomes small, then even the slightest amount of effort feels like the end of the world because I'm so used to instant fix. I'm so used to temporary comfort that the slightest discomfort is too much to handle. Begin because there was this evil inclination or ego that was first to make his case, this conniving, wicked force that was first to for us to hear, the first voice we heard. And that's why King Solomon said, that's why King Solomon says that the voice of the wisdom of the poor, which represents the voice of our soul, is scorned. And the words are not listened to, our words are not heeded. It's so easy to hear the loud, obnoxious, arrogant voice of our ego because it makes us feel good. It's comforting. But the soft whisper of our soul that makes me take responsibility instead of blaming others. The soft whisper of our soul that tells me to take the hit to my ego won't let me take that hit. This is, again, what we speak about in Kabbalah 1. It's two voices that we need to choose to listen to. And the voice that we're used to, that the radio station that is of our opponent is the one that we just constantly have on. To turn it off or to start to lower the volume and to hear our soul is not easy. It's not easy because we're so used to it, and the voice of our soul is uncomfortable. To do what I came here to do in this world is uncomfortable. Restriction is uncomfortable. Yes, long-term effect is actual blessings and fulfillment, but in the moment, it's uncomfortable. Begin because the other arrived earlier, because the opponent came first, because that's the voice that I hear first. First the opponent, first the negative side makes me, like we said, feel so limited. You and I have a limitless soul that comes from the Creator, and the opponent does everything to make me insecure, Do I make you feel arrogant? Whatever your ego is. That's what the opponent worked for the first 12 or 13 years, setting up your life and making this person, create this type of trauma, and this situation can create the other type of trauma, all to believe that the opponent is right and that the illusion that the opponent sets for us is true. Paragraph 10. Ve'alda. Kol dayanin dekabil mibanash mila. And therefore, any judge, who receives the testimony or the words of one side, right? Of either of the litigants, of the prosecutor, like we had before, it's too far to bring that picture back. Ad layete chavrei, until the other side comes in, till the defendant or whoever can come in. It's as if someone is believing in another God. It's someone who believes in another force. It's like idolatry. It's obviously not a fair judge, but that's what we do. We believe in one side before the other comes in. Again, it's by design. Ela uvara'eu v'chakaro. Rather, the end of the verse says in Proverbs, until the other party cross-examines, until the other side, till the colleague comes in and gives his side of the story. Meaning until you can hear the testimony of the other person, the voice of our soul. Now the Zohar says this is how the Tzadikim do it. How do the righteous people become righteous? How do they live? What makes a righteous person righteous? A righteous person is someone who doesn't believe in the lies of the opponent. It's someone who doesn't believe in the illusions of this world. That's why the Rav says the beginning of Kabbalah 1 is always to help us see through the illusion of our opponent, to realize that the ways of reactivity do not serve us. The ways of selfishness do not serve us. Our whole lives, we were fooled into thinking that it pays. It never pays. It's to see through the illusion of the lies of the opponent. And that's what the tzaddikim do. They don't believe. They don't believe in this conniving, wicked, evil, selfish, destructive force of our ego. Because they wait for the voice of the soul to come in. They don't choose a side. They don't get hooked on the voice of the ego and believe it before the voice of the soul comes in. And therefore, and because most people believe in the voice of the ego, and we follow in that path, and that becomes truth, most people, they fall, most people fail to merit the world to come, which means to actually experience the blessings that we're supposed to. The opponent ruins all the chances of true light because without restriction, there is no light. And the path of the opponent is a path of no restriction, a path of reactivity, a path of short-term, temporary comfort that leads to greater pain and chaos later. Paragraph 11. Avalahu zaka'ah. But the righteous person, the tzaddik, who fears his master, which means he has appreciation for the Creator. He'll go through a lot of pain, a lot of challenges, many challenges. In order not to believe and join the evil inclination. What does it mean that he goes through a lot of suffering? Well, short-term discomfort for long-term fulfillment. The Zohar is also here going to speak about the pain that the righteous go through. A lot of us think that, okay, if I'm spiritual, then I'll never have any pain. That's not true. Pain is coming either way. The question is, do you have tools to deal with that pain? Do you have protection to sustain you during those moments? Do you have certainty? to hold on to during this time, which allows for the blessings to come in. No matter what pain and challenges that tzaddik experiences, the Creator protects them and saves them from everything. It says in Psalm 34, verse 20, many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Creator delivers them, the Lord delivers them out of all. Zohar says, Rabot ra'ot la tzaddik laktiv, ela tzaddik. It doesn't say, and here in the English translation, it translates it how we might understand it. We translate it as many are the afflictions of the righteous, meaning there are many afflictions, a lot of pain, a lot of challenges that the righteous experience. But the Zohar says, read it a little differently, read it more accurately. Rabot ra'ot, if a person has many challenges, tzaddik, he is righteous. Why do we experience challenges? Why do we go through pain? Why do we experience discomfort? It's all to go against the selfishness that exists within us. That's why Dari explains that the process of the Israelites in slavery, the process of the Israelites in Egypt, the Zohar explains many times, the process of the pain that we go through is a purification process. It's like when you are purifying gold. The gold, when you mine it out of the ground, it's full of impurities. And how do you remove those impurities? There needs to be the heat and the pressure and the refinement process. That's what our challenges are, a refinement process. And a lot of people like to see the result of spiritual work without realizing the work that goes into it. A person wants all the blessings without going through all the work. That's why Karen Berg would say, religious people are afraid to go to hell. Spiritual people have already gone through hell. That's that process of true inner work. Begin the kutshabrichu itaebe. The Creator desires and wants the righteous. The Creator is connected to the tzadikim, because they've gone through spiritual work and they've created alignment and affinity between them and the Creator. Therefore, the Creator desires that person. The Creator cares for that person. And protects them from everything. Both in this world and the world to come, both physically and spiritually. Happy is his portion. Paragraph 12. Come and see. So now the Zohar, this was all an introduction to bring us to the portion of Vayeshev. In the portion of Vayeshev, we've just gone through in the portion of Todot, the portion of Vayetze, the portion of Vayishlach, the challenges that Jacob had to go through. And here the Zohar is going to list a few of them. But his greatest challenges, the Zohar will mention, is in this portion. Come and see. Come and see the challenges and the pain, the affliction, the darkness that Jacob went through. Begin to laid back in order not to attach himself to the negative side and not to take part of the side of the evil inclination, of the side of the opponent, the side of the ego. And therefore he suffered from different types of punishment. And we know punishment is not the sense that you did something wrong, so something bad happens to you. It represents judgments and purification process. Kamabishim, all sorts of negativity and evil. Vela shakit, and he had no tranquility, no peace. Now we know that the first 130 years of Jacob's life, both Abraham, Isaac, and all three of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all took on different aspects of the correction of Adam and Eve, the souls of humanity, basically. And that's why it says that Adam was away from Eve, meaning for 130 years he was disconnected from light. And therefore, the first 130 years of Jacob's life was a life of great suffering, a lot of pain. That part of that purification process, that refinement process. And there's a lot here. There's such subtleties. The words the Zohar uses are very beautiful. And if you read it superficially, it doesn't make sense. But when you understand it deeper, that, like we said, it's the temporary pain that we avoid. The temporary pain that we embrace to overcome that force. Patach v'amar. So Jacob said, La shalvati ve'la shakarti ve'la nachti ve'yavor ogez. Obviously, this is the book of Job. Wasn't Jacob this is literally saying it, but these are the this is sometimes in later prophets they would use phrases to explain the process or the experience that someone in like Jacob experienced. So it says when it says Lo shalvati, I have no tranquility, peace. Velo shakatati, I have no quiet. Velo nachti, I have no rest. Vayavo ogez, and trouble came. Tachaze, come and see. Kama bishin savlin tzadikai behalma. Come and see the pain and the suffering that tzaddikim go through in this world, the purification process. Bishin al bishin. Uh, Trouble after trouble. Kevin al kevin. Pain after pain. Begin the miske lo amadate. In order to merit the world to come. Now, again, this concept of pain of the tzaddikim, maybe we'll have more time to explain tomorrow. But it says, for example, that the tzaddikim accept upon themselves the pain of the world. They could accept upon themselves the tikkun for the world, so the world doesn't have to experience it. It's not that they want to suffer; it's that they want to protect the world. So it says, like Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, it quotes in the Talmud that he actually was constantly experiencing what are called isurim, which are afflictions and suffering and pain, because he took on that pain to remove that suffering from the world. And it also says, and we read this in the portion of Toldot, that whatever is uncomfortable for the body will be good for the soul. Again, it doesn't mean that in our lives we should necessarily do this. We are not on this level to put the body through such pain. But the tzaddikim, they were able to see the illusion of the ego, and therefore the pain that they went through on a physical level, like Rabbi Akiva, when he was skinned to death. The Rav explains he didn't feel pain because it was just the body. When you're so connected to your soul, you don't feel the pain of the body. So again, there's a lot more to this, but let's just read one more paragraph. Paragraph 13. Yaakov kama savil. How much did Jacob suffer? Bishin al bishin tadia. One affliction after the other, constantly. As it says, Lo shalvati, when it says that I had no tranquility, I had no repose, I had no peace. Beveita de Lavan, Beveita Lavan, in the time when I was in Lavan's house for 20 years, I was not able to escape to escape the evil there. And to all the troubles, 20 years of suffering, Jacob says. And it says, when he says that I had no quiet. Me'esav, I had no quiet from Esau. All the pain that he caused me. Delay, and his minister, his negative angel that attacked me, that Jacob wrestled with the angel. Ulvata de chilu de Esav, and all the fear that Jacob had of Esau, that he would kill his family, and everything that we went in the portion of Vayishlach. Lanachti, when it says that I had no rest after that whole process with Esau, after Lavan and Esau. Again, Jacob had no rest because right when he settles min Dina min Shechem on what happened with Dinah and Shechem. Dinah is Jacob's daughter. She was raped by Shechem and kidnapped, and that whole process that went on, Jacob had no peace. Had no rest there. And then the final thing, Vayavor ogez. And then trouble came. After all of that, then the real trouble came. Paragraph 14, Vayavor ogez. Da rugza virbuvia de Yosef. This was the trouble, the confusion of what happened with Joseph, as we see in this portion. Joseph was sold, but to Jacob, he thought he died. Diyu kasha mikulu, which is the most difficult challenge that Jacob went through. Because of the love and connection, the affinity that Jacob had with Joseph. Because we know as Jacob was the level of Tiferet, and Joseph was the level of Yisod. When Joseph was born, it was the completion of Jacob's level of Zerampin. While Jacob loved all of his children, Joseph was the closest to him. He represented his perfection, his completion. He was the secret of the covenant of the Brit. And that's why Jacob eventually went down to Egypt. And that's why it says afterwards, that it was that the Creator remembered the covenant, which represents Joseph and the love between Joseph and Jacob. And that's where the redemption came from. And it was the love that Jacob had for Joseph. It was the great connection that they had together that brought the Shekhinah, the light of the Creator, down into Egypt, into the darkness. That was eventually the way that the reason why the redemption was able to happen, because the Creator was down in the darkness with them. We have to finish, but I just want to, and that's why the pain, the trouble of the loss of Joseph was the greatest. That's what caused Jacob to lose 20 more than 20 years of prophecy. Jacob was disconnected in sadness for 20 years, disconnected from life for 20 years because of the loss of Joseph. We're going to continue tomorrow with paragraph 15, and we'll continue to explain. We'll go deeper into this. Thank you guys for joining. I'm sorry it's a bit rushed. We're a bit late anyway. But want to wish everyone an amazing new moon. See you tomorrow for the next day of the new moon. And let's awaken this connection to the Zohar to start to believe, start to hear the voice of our soul more. Start to notice where that voice of our soul is whispering to us, and stop believing in that reactivity and selfishness will ever pay. Lots of love, everyone. Chodesh Tov. See you soon.